All right, hello, Internet. We are here. We're going to discuss what? Cioran's A Short History of Decay this time. This one goes out to all you nihilists out there, maybe, and maybe anti-natalists too, maybe. Um, so I just want to start this one and by saying, like, this is my first encounter with Cioran. This is my first book of his, and I don't know. This time I kind of feel like I'm just getting to know him a little bit. I'm just getting a feeling for his work. It's tough for me to say anything definitive. I mean, of course, I read the whole thing and I tried to garner as much as I could from it, but I just want to start off by saying I'm not satisfied. I'm not satisfied with what I got out of it. I think I could have gotten more. I think I need to get a better feel for the man before I can make stronger statements. How about you?
Yeah, I feel the exact same way. Like, I wanted to take something core out of this. I mean, like, I think I got the feeling, at least I hope, I got the feeling of what he mostly wants to say and the kind of atmosphere that occurred post World War II in Europe. This kind of feeling of despair that, I don't know, it kind of feels like Khemu in a certain sense, the sense of despair post World War II. But it's difficult for me to pick out specifically one thing in the book per se. I mean, it seems kind of more like ruminations and a lot of just kind of despair and a feeling of kind of being tired and lethargic and not being able to care about anything. And
you must almost get a sense too that he's frustrated with himself. He's frustrated with the fact that, like, he's come to these conclusions. Here, he was frustrated at some point. I'm not sure anymore that he came to these conclusions, but they don't leave him anything. They kind of leave him empty, and they give him no comfort. And death would just be death would be that comfort, but he's not going to kill himself.
Yeah. So. Okay, so I mean, like, the general feeling, let's just get into this, the general feeling I got from the book, or at least this is just that's an oversimplified way to put it, is his idea is kind of like, well, you can only take life seriously if you don't really think about it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I got of. Like, I just titled, like, I would say, Thinking Ruins Life.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, I just love this quote on the book from, it's a section called The Parasite of Poets. Well, in this version, it's page 102, but he says straight up, life belongs to dolts. Right? I mean, there we go. I think that kind of captures, I mean, I just like the prose there. I think it really captures what he's after, though. I think he kind of views it more like it's like, when you're young, when you're a kid and you're enthralled in just like your passions and your pleasures, you don't really have time to sit and think about what it is you're doing on any kind of grand scale. Then you're living, that's life, but it's kind of dumb. It's animalistic. It's driven by desires. And, if you someday you advance to becoming more of a thinking type of person, or maybe you have a thinking kind of orientation, you're soon going to see that all of that stuff you're doing is, I guess, just meaningless in the grand scale of things. Is not going to do or get you anything. I love this. I have to say, I mean, I think this is point is core, but I have to say, like, I did enjoy this image he painted in the section called The Faces of Decadence in the book.
Yes. That's my favorite section, I think, in the book.
Yeah. He talks about how he says this. I love this too. This line. I think it illuminates what he thinks. He says, "The discovery of life annihilates life." In other words, I guess the thinking about life, the discovering of the concept of life, or the thinking about life that starts to kill life. Like you start to see how absurd everything you're doing is. And I just love this image where he talks about. He says. Eating. He uses eating as a good image. He says, to meditate on one's sensations, to know one is eating, is an accession of consciousness by which an elementary action transcends its immediate goal and he said with this, alongside intellectual disgust develops another kind of nihilism of repletion. And he said, I just like this quote after that. He says too, every meal which exceeds in time a few minutes and in dishes the necessities disintegrates our certitudes.
Yeah.
So
a little below that too, he says, hunger seeks a way to salvation in religion. Being satiated is a poison.
Yeah.
So in other words, again, it's the same theme of like it's just this opening quote. I kind of want to read the first part of this first sentence, first two sentences here of this. I mean, I think this gives a real feeling. This Faces of Decadence gives a real feeling for where he's coming from, right? A civilization begins to decline the moment life becomes its sole obsession. Epics of apogee cultivate values for their own sake. Life is only a means of realizing them. The individual is not aware of living; he lives. In other words, like we're doing our best when we're just kind of unconsciously going along and not really analyzing or trying to see if what we're thinking is really true. We're best when we're deceived and stupid and believe that what we're doing has some kind of objective value in the world. And now that it's kind of this flowers for Algae now, I'm kind of, I don't know, like now that we know that that every one of these objective causes is basically for naught. It's not written into the structure of the universe, I suppose, and really objectively true in any kind of objective sense that he wants.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good way to put
it. That therefore everything descends into a kind of meaninglessness. This is the feeling you get from here, and then I guess it also kind of speaks to a feeling I think a lot of people have. I'm gonna get the ball rolling here a little bit. Like, don't you think people have the feeling like once you start analyzing something, it kills it?
Yeah. Oh, totally. I think
it feels like this.
I get it. I get this from a lot of people too, they want to avoid people talking about stuff, or they don't like it when people start analyzing stuff because they kind of come with this preconception that you're just going to kill it. It's just going to kill it. Like if you talk about it, it drains it of anything good.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, maybe their idea is that like, well, I mean, if you start analyzing anything, well, nothing really makes sense. Like, why would you talk about, like, I don't know, a movie per se? Well, I mean, why would you analyze a Superman movie? It's all absurd, right? Like, movies are all just fake anyway. So what's the point? I mean, you're just going to kill the fantasy. You're going to kill that circle of illusion that it took to build that movie up, right?
It's interesting. I think it's a good analogy too, because it almost works in the same way Cioran's doing this too. Like they're kind of like, well, Superman's fake, so that means anything that happens in a Superman movie that gets a pass. You know what I mean? Or like Gremlins is fake, so whatever way they screw up in a Gremlins movie, what are you talking about? That Gremlins don't exist. What are you talking about? That gets a pass, right?
It's nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, it takes this.
It's an all or nothing.
Yeah, it's an all or nothing, and it eliminates all distinctions that could happen below it for the sake of this grand vision of what things are supposed to mean.
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess the feeling I'm getting, at least after the end of World War II, and I don't think you really have to go there. I mean, Hegel's the first one that talked about the death of God, and Hegel, maybe he realized this in a way too, and then Schopenhauer was the kind of first really big, I guess, atheist philosopher. I mean, there's Max Stirner and all these other guys, these German communists and stuff. These are all atheists too. But anyway, there's kind of a loss in faith of God. And then Nietzsche comes along and he sees that, like, what do we do about this problem? I mean, this is a problem that European philosophy had been dealing with for a long time. Like, how do we live in a world without a God or without a metaphysics, an objective metaphysics, as in like somehow the purpose of your life is written into the structure of the universe, right? And then I guess this kind of really sunk deep into the hearts of like post-war Europeans, I guess, after seeing fascism basically rip apart their continent and seeing just the extent to which how much damage can be done by someone that really, really believes something to be true.
Yeah.
I mean, that feeling of despair gets through very well in here. I mean, it's all, this book is mostly kind of, I don't know, soliloquy to despair and tiredness and being angry at the world. Like he just doesn't want to touch it or be part of it anymore. And there's,
I mean, you could see like something interesting in this part. Like he talks about one of the things that captured me early on in the book, where he started talking about how he wished people were corruptible. He wished, like, he likes it better when you can buy off the local politician for a couple of dollars, right? He thinks that's a better world. It's the safer one. It's the one that's going to lead to less disasters, because he's just been like betrayed by this world of people who just it's almost like religiously believed in certain ideologies. And I don't know, it just disappointed him to the extent where it's kind of like, no, maybe we should just stick to, you know, just kind of whatever it is you want. You know, one day this, another day that. It's much better this way.
I mean, I have a certain sympathy with that.
Me too.
I think at that point it did take me in a little bit too. I kind of felt it, that like sometimes politics can suck the blood out of maybe interesting cultural achievements, right? And an overbearing politics can, or at least an ideology can tend to suck the life out of other viewpoints. When an ideology begins to gain control over a lot of people, the other ones kind of get swept off to the side, or if not that, outright eliminated. You don't see their perspective anymore, and a little bit of life, whatever that ideology doesn't encompass, gets eliminated, right? Thrown away in a certain way. And, you know, maybe a kind of a corrupt world, or where everybody's just kind of doing their own thing. In a sense, I guess it's the possibility to be more human is there still, as opposed to a world dominated by simply one ideology.
Yeah.
So I feel for this.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't know, in a weird way, I kind of think he thinks these guys, these people who are obsessed with these ideologies, in a strange way, lost perspective. Don't you think? Like, he thinks like if you really saw, like, on the grand scale, all these ideologies amount to nothing. So how could you get so wrapped up in this? I mean, I think this is kind of where he's coming from, like, or the way he sees it. And if he thinks if these people just make this next step, then they would have seen that it's not worth everything that you've just done.
Yeah, I mean, basically, there he takes this extreme step that I don't know what to do with sometimes, is that, well, once you see that there's no objective truth, objective in his sense, then it's all for naught. I mean, like, what is it? The core of knowledge.
Yeah.
I mean, like, this is the passage where he says outright, I mean, this is the other half of his thought here, right? The first sentence. Our truths are worth no more than those of our ancestors. As for great problems, we have no advantage over our ancestors any more than our recent predecessors. Men have always known everything. There cannot be any new problems. How about this one? All means and methods of knowing are valid.
Yeah.
Reasoning, intuition, disgust, enthusiasm. I mean,
yeah, I highlighted that one especially. I like how it goes on too. He says he includes disgust, lamentation
as a method of reasoning.
Yeah, he says a vision of the world propped up on concepts is no more legitimate than another, which proceeds from tears, arguments, or sighs. Modalities equally probing and equally vain.
The merest illiterate and Aristotle are equally irrefutable.
Yeah.
And fragile. In other words, he because there's no objective truth, he sees no possibility for progress in the world, neither moral progress or any kind of metaphysical progress at all.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing that puts, for example, the peanut butter guy over Shakespeare, to get back to that problem, right? The man eating peanut butter and Shakespeare are basically just the same thing. And that's it. There's nothing more to be said. And I love how he takes as his villain here. It's Hegel. Hegel comes up as his villain, like, well, Hegel, that weirdo, believed in moral progress, right? And he believed in this kind of, I don't know, approaching the absolute. Now, I do have my problems with that. However, I don't know. I personally, I tend to find myself on the side of, it's weird to say progress, but I don't know. I don't think it's fair to say we've made absolutely no progress from Aristotle to now.
Yeah.
in terms of even our concepts, or even just concept analysis, even just in terms of that. But I mean, how about in terms of moral progress, slavery, for example, or psychology? I mean, that was all encompassed under philosophy at one time. And so was science, by the way, too. I was all under the roof of a way of thinking and analyzing the world. And I don't know, I mean, you got to admit there was progress there. Some kind of progress. I mean, we know more about ourselves, or at least a little more about ourselves than we did. I'm thinking. I'm kind of following that side, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. You're right. On this point, I just don't know what to say to Cioran, except, you know, really equal, really? I really don't think so. I mean,
I don't know. I just don't know what to say to someone that says like, well, that's only true because you're human.
Yeah.
Right. Like, well, if you were a xenomorph from Alien, you would consider moral progress better chest bursting.
Yeah.
Or face hugging. Well, I'd have to say, well, yeah, I would, but I'm not an alien. I'm a human. Yeah. I mean, and if that's like gonna sink all thoughts into nothing, I don't know. I can't follow it that far. If that's what he's trying to say to me, is like, well, just because in every possible world, this is not moral progress, therefore it's not moral progress.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what to say to that other than, well, I mean, did you, I mean, I don't know. It seems like in a crazy way, like, would you like a universe in which moral progress was written into the structure of it? Would you want that universe where the purpose of it was already decided for you? I don't know.
I mean, isn't this interestingly, this is actually, I kind of like what you're saying here, and I kind of picked up on this too. Isn't it interesting the fact that, isn't this the point where Khemu in the myth of Sisyphus, he jumps out of this. Khemu said that was a good thing. Yeah. It was a good thing that we couldn't capture everything in these meanings. It was a good thing that this stuff wasn't written into the universe, because this allowed for this kind of, well, I mean, I don't know. Khemu has his ins and outs, but this allowed for the rebellion to happen. Yeah. It's allowed for us to break out of certain structures of meaning and then create maybe new ones.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like Cioran sighs, or at least he's sighing for this lost delusion we have.
Yeah.
Of objectivity, whereas Khemu and the other existentialists sometimes celebrate, and also are fear the loss of it, but celebrate it too, in the same way that Nietzsche kind of did. I find myself more on that side. Yeah. As opposed to mourning the loss of, what a strange thing it would be if the universe were like, it was written into the universe what the purpose of human life would be, or all life would be. I don't even know what that would mean, actually, but
I mean, at that point it just becomes like, you know, there's a God who sits outside the universe, giving meaning kind of from the outside. Like all the meaning of what's in here is reference to what's.
But this idea never goes away, does it? This all meaning has to come from outside.
Outside, yeah.
All meaning comes from outside the structure of X, right? Yeah. As Wittgenstein thought the same thing.
Early Wittgenstein
thought the same thing. Like, well, you know, meaning has to come from outside the universe, and that can't happen. So nothing, right? Like, we don't know. We can't talk about it at the very least. We wouldn't know what to do or say. Even the new Tractatus, right, kind of had this feeling. I don't know. I think a lot of people have this sensation.
Oh, I agree. I totally agree. I mean, I don't know. I think a lot your man on the street would just kind of go to that level, like just it kind of fits together in a weird way, because just, I don't know, common sense, a kind of common sense, like.
But the God one is even funnier, because like, well, if God gives the meaning from outside the world, the problem doesn't go away. Yeah. It's just kind of funny, right? Like, it's just some kind of old Platonic problem now. Well, how did God arrive at that then?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, did he choose meaning because it's meaningful?
Yeah.
Or is it meaningful because he chose it? I mean, we're going back to Euripides here, or not Euripides.
Wow, Euthyphro. Whoa. Don't throw your tragedians in there.
Messing up with my tragedians. Euthyphro's problem just happens in meaning then. Like, okay, so God says the meaning. Well, why? Why is that meaningful then? So the problem just gets pushed back another level.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's much of an escape there. I mean, it would just have to be simply written into the structure of whatever it is that this is meaningful. And I don't know, like either you celebrate the fact that we're free ultimately and we have to make our own meanings and lives, or you despair of it because you know that ultimately, like, I don't know, I admit it's true in the grand sense. I mean, there's no way to, like, in his way of saying objectively, there's no way to say, well, human life is objectively meaningful. I mean, that's just something we have to deal with in a world that has no God.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, I mean, like, for example, like, I think I really do think it takes a lot of strength to be able to look at your work, your own work, and say this is good. Like, for example, think of George Lucas, right? Like he's a guy that made something, and he can only look at the mistakes. So all he does is all these times trying to fix it and fix it and fix it, and like all his fans look at his work as like some kind of objective work of art. And they can't believe this man would even fix anything, right?
Yeah,
like to them, this is like some kind of like solid state. And like the fact that he's changing it is taking that objectivity away from them. So they're in a panic. And the fact that he can't put something into the world and just leave it. He can't do it, right? Because he's focusing on these mistakes and he just can't let it go, right? It takes real, I don't know, it's going to take like a superhuman strength or something to look at your work and knowing the other possibilities, right? When you make something of yourself, you know what you did and didn't do, what you could have done had you had the time, or what you should have done maybe, I don't know, in your mindset then. You know, all these things, right? When you arrange a room or make a painting, right? You know, all these things, and still knowing all that, say this is good, right? It's tough to do. Something like Lucas couldn't do it, apparently.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird because like Cioran gets, he's obsessed with this, how should I, like, encompassing totalities. Like it's got to be all true or nothing, and like because he will accept nothing in between, like just nothing in between. He gets, I don't know. I don't know. I just need to get more chance to get to know the guy. But like, it's for example, he starts harping on an interesting thing, and I think it's something interesting, concepts, and how kind of conceptual thinking works. And he says, I think he thinks, for example, like concepts are kind of like a lie, and he says, through the concept of misery or death, we're able to escape the true horror of misery and death. He says, like quite directly in his Face of Decadence section, he says that it is the use of concepts which makes us masters of our fears. We say death, and this abstraction releases us from experiencing its infinity, its horror. But then he goes on to ask, you know, if we could bear to feel these things without the use of words. I think he's trying to, it's difficult to see where he's going with this, except the fact that at least at this point, like, except the fact that like the concept is kind of like giving a kind of lie, making reality into a kind of lie so that we can take it, which, you know, okay. And he's interesting in his section on later. He says there's a section called "We Troglodytes." I just like the way he phrases it here. He says we are something only by exclusion, like we're a liberal or an intellectual or something. I'm assuming he means that in the sense that, you know, I'm an intellectual, I'm a liberal, because I exclude other things, right? So by focusing only on a couple areas, then I can call myself a liberal, intellectual, or conservative, or an anarchist, or whatever. But I have to leave out everything else. So he says, like, you know, every step we take forward, we take a step back, right? But because in that sense, like, I don't capture everything. I can't capture the totality. I gotta constantly leave stuff out in order to be anything. So
I have sympathy for that, though.
Yeah, me too. I really do. It's just, I don't know. Just as I was reading it, you know, you kind of, I like this idea. I have sympathy for this idea, but then it gets into weird areas where, like, so I know it almost feels like he's trying to say, like, you know, for example, I'm feeling misery or pain right now, but through the abstraction pain, I'm able to kind of lie my way out of it and live, right? But I mean, what if we just flip the script? What if we just totally flip the script? What if it's the concepts that allow us to see how things really are, right? It's the concepts that allow us to transcend this present moment of pain, right? It's the concept of, it's my concept of my pain, or something like, if I only bear it out a little while, I don't know, I bear the peroxide now and I won't have an infection later. I bear the braces now and I'll have good teeth later. It kind of just reminds me, you know, it reminds me of my son. Like I brought this up a while ago, like how you know, my son doesn't have these concepts. He's so, you know, super tiny, super little. He's like only 2, right? So he doesn't get his access to some of these concepts, right? So, you know, like when I turn off the TV, it's kind of like, you know, I was watching Curious George. What? It's gone. It's gone. No. Right. And like, I don't know. It'd just be weird to substitute that. Like, you know, we say the loss of Curious George, right? But this abstraction releases us from experiencing its infinity and its horror of the loss of Curious George. Right? Can we bear to handle the loss of Curious George without words? Right? You know, I don't want to. I want to go too goofy, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I kind of want to keep that aspect of the whole thing too, right? I want to keep this in between ground, right, where these words are doing something too sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, just as a crazy thought, I mean, like, what if all reality is simply is just a bunch of concepts? I mean, like, wouldn't it be weird to say, well, I mean, like, I get it. Like when you say, even something as simple as book or table, sometimes you have your abstraction of a table and book, you don't actually see it for what it is. This is what Sartre talks about, like, you know, like the tree, not seeing the tree for what it's too big to fit in your head and like all this stuff. But, I mean, but the tree is created by the concept tree.
You Hegelian, you...
I mean, like, how could the tree not be created by the concept tree? I mean, if you didn't have the concept tree, then you just simply wouldn't be able to pick it out.
Yeah, I mean, I get where you're coming from, right? Yeah, we're using the concept to pick out the tree, right?
Yeah.
Like I mean, identify it.
In a strange way, a tree wouldn't exist without the concept tree.
All right, I like your extreme way of saying it, or maybe if we just flipped it a little bit and say, like, without the concept of tree, we wouldn't be able to identify the tree.
Why would trees exist without the concept of tree?
Well,
I mean, I don't know, do space?
I'm kind of on your side. I don't.
Tic-tac-toe boards not exist or exist then? Even though if I don't recognize it, like, oh, look, the stars are arranged in a tic-tac-toe board, right? Like, and I simply didn't have the word to say it before, but thank God now. I mean,
I'm kind of on your side here on this. I do think that they kind of don't, in that sense that they don't exist in that, like, without the concept. Yeah.
I mean, they're there, but there's nothing separating them from. There's no principum individual.
Schopenhauer. Wow. Schopenhauer, Hegel, Schopenhauer. Wow. So this German idealism is coming in here all of a sudden. No, I get it.
My mind has been poisoned. So I'm just saying, just as a thought experiment.
I get it. I'm with you. I'm there.
But then I take it. I mean, I take what Sartre says, the heart, or even Nietzsche talks about this too a little bit, how the concept hides the thing itself when you have a leaf and you don't look at individual leaves.
Yeah.
Right. You don't see how this one is different than all the other ones. You fit it into that structure.
I mean, a concept functions as a simplification. I mean, I don't think that's wrong.
No, this is true.
That's what attracts me to it. I like that concepts are simplifications in certain.
Well, I mean, if I was going to be the extreme Cioran, then I'd be like, well, nothing exists because concepts aren't really true.
I know. I don't know. Like, I was thinking about this a little bit too. Like, I got here and I was kind of like, wait a second. didn't he get upset because our concepts in science proved that our lives were meaningless? But then later he went on to say that concepts are lies. No, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You get to this point where I don't know. There's just a point where you can't go any further. Where you kind of like, if you accept that definition of objectivity, right? If it simply must be this way, and everything's got to be, I don't know. It's so weird to say like everything must exist, and that has to be like in the structure of the universe. Like I don't know, trees simply must like it's a platonically almost like like people are mourning the loss of platonic forms here. Like they've left our world and floated up into whatever heaven Plato's in, tripping over the number 2 and tree and meaning. They're all up there like existing. And it's so weird to say this. I don't know how they're existing either. In what meaning do we say the word even existing? I have no idea what it even means to say these things exist. And I can't even fathom what that means. But existing, and actually, if they do exist, they're the ones that are really existing, and we are just the shadows, right? So we're mourning the loss of our ground of existence here. Like, like I love how Nietzsche took this. Like he's like, well, we stepped out of the shadows, man. We're like, we're the real things, right? Like we're real. We're real. Plato has cast the shadow over us, right? Like, but no, and like Nietzsche's like no, or but he's kind of like, man, give me that platonic. Damn, it's a shame. But he's like, well, I can't believe that anymore either. So. Wow, what a crappy universe.
Yeah.
Basically the feeling I get here.
Oh, me too. Me too. There's this weird, I didn't write down this weird section at the end where he talks about like how should I say, kind of yearning after somebody who's like yearning after a god that disappeared. And I was kind of like, is he talking about himself here? I should have wrote down this section, but I was like, is this supposed to be you, Cioran, or what?
I mean, he mixes it up. Like, I mean, in the Tilting Cross, he says, like, I dream of a universe exempt from celestial intoxications, of a universe with neither cross nor faith.
Yeah,
I wonder about that.
Isn't it weird? Really? Like this kind of like indifference thing doesn't this play right into the idea that like on the grand scale, like these things are meaningless. So why would you be concerned about them?
Yeah.
I mean, you should be indifferent to them because on the grand scale, they are just.
Yeah, you have to be stupid to live. Like life is for the stupid people.
Yeah, life is for the stupid, right?
I mean, dumb people have reasons to live.
It's those dummies who are going out living.
Yeah, and smart people know that it was all just a lie and a fake. And if you really start thinking about anything, nothing's really real, and there's no point to anything, and the universe is just a big black empty mess. You know, in a weird way, I agree.
Yeah.
I do agree with all those points. I just don't think that that's the only definition of objectivity available to us.
Yeah. Of meaning, of objectivity,
I mean, like that sense of meaning is gone.
Yeah.
Right. This is what we have to deal with after God died. Right.
Yeah.
And this is what Nietzsche has always been talking about. Right. But I agree. Like he's right. I just think that there's something else available to us to grab onto, and he doesn't.
Yeah. Or he's not happy with it. He demands more. He just demands that there be this thing outside of the universe, giving the universe meaning, and it's gone. So, or we can't get it, or it's not there, or we can't believe it anymore. Whatever.
I mean, like I don't know. It's everything is not concrete. In every possible universe, it could have been different. So therefore, everything is meaningless. Like this kind of thought that just keeps on popping up again and again.
Yeah,
it's really interesting how this just never goes away, does it?
Yeah, boy, it really does seem to stick around. I mean, okay. So yeah, I think those are the two major points that I was kind of like, Let me just throw in something I kind of liked. I want to throw in a positive point here. Let's be a little positive. Weirdly positive.
I don't think we're negative. I just think, I think I agree with him actually.
Yeah, just on how he draws. The conclusions he draws.
I don't follow him all the way to the end.
Yeah, there we go. That's a good way to put it. I love this section and like early in the book, and this book is like on page 22 or so. I can't remember what section. He says, I just love this sentence. Only impurity is a sign of reality. Kind of, you know, it took me back to our reading last time with Solomon and Kitsch, and it kind of reminded me that maybe I'm more like Cioran at this point, in the sense that, like, you know, it really got me all disgusted about these kitschy scenes of, like, you know, little girls and little children playing in the forest, is because, like, it's supposed to be all pure. They're so pure. Oh, right. And I was, you know, like, no. It's so fake. It's so fake, right? Maybe, you know, maybe there's a little bit of it in me, you know.
Oh, I think so too.
Yeah.
That's the feeling I got too. Right, I get it.
Like the pure is the real.
Right, and he says in this section, indefinite horror, which is a great title, by the way. Anyway, he says, we are healthy only insofar as we are not specifically ourselves. It is our disgusts which individualize us.
Yeah.
Now, again, like, I get it. Like, it's the same that Tolstoy said. Like, every family is happy in the same way, but everyone is unhappy in a different way, right? Like, somehow, like, but I mean, but my question to myself is really. I mean, kind of seems like there's a lot of people sad in the same way too, or disgusting in the same way too, right? I mean, like, I love how everyone likes to pretend like, you know, being happy is such a simple thing. And, you know, that's for the
dummies,
the soppy, wussy idiots,
dummies.
But suffering is somehow unique to you, right? Like, no one's suffering like you are, right? I mean, and like, I know, as hard as it is to bear sometimes, right? It's either that everyone is happy in their own way, and that's equally as true as everyone's individual suffering, or, you know, if we want to talk a little bit more all-encompassing, well, if everyone's happy in the same way, a lot of people suffer in the same way. And I can see that on the internet a lot. So, I mean, it's not even, I like how it's not even that. We're not even our suffering individualizes us.
Yeah.
We're just copies of each other and suffering too.
Yeah, I mean, if you subscribe to enough Reddit boards that collect, like, these Facebook posts and stuff, you're kind of like, huh. Yeah, it's just the same thing again and again and again and again and again. Yeah. All these people, the complaints are always the same type, always the same way.
So, I mean, like, I guess, but I think we have more sympathy with the idea that, like, I don't know, the pain is the individual thing and the happiness, that's the wussy sentimental thing. So that's nothing interesting, right? We throw that away as a kind of a fake emotion or something.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, I like that part. I thought it was kind of cool, that part. Maybe I in a weird way, I do relate to that. I think reality is kind of messy, just in general. Like, it's a little bit, when things get a little too pure, I start, like, my eyebrows start raising, kind of like, really? I don't know about this. I don't know. Maybe it's just a bias on my part, but.
Yeah, but I guess if you take it in the sense of, like, well, I'm pretty down with it. Reality is impure idea in the sense that, I don't know, whatever your concept of pure is, that's what the scary thing is going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it reminded me of what Solomon said too. Like, does this mean, like, there's no innocence? Like, innocence just doesn't exist. Period. Right? Are we that? He's kind of like in the essays, like, are we that cynical? Are we really? That's like nothing. Innocence does not exist in the universe, and I don't know. I was close to there actually, but okay, I gotta concede that point. That's a little bit too far.
At least if it's something as simple as, well, when you say someone is innocent, you have to exclude other parts of them sometimes to say that, or you're not. Or in other words, as Solomon said, you're focusing on this part of them. As long as you keep that in mind, right? Like, then you can say, oh, she's so pure, right? You know, hopefully you don't say, right now at this exact moment when I'm focusing on just these activities, right? Hopefully we understand that we're not kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So we understand we're focusing on this one small part, but, like, if the idea is simply that ideology or these concepts cut off parts of objects and make them hidden, well, I'm down with that. Then again, reality is made by concepts, so
yeah,
you know.
I don't know what perspective would be the perspective that doesn't have something hidden from it, but the perspective of God. So there was also this kind of really goofy section. I thought it was just goofy. He starts talking about how much he loved reading about female saints, like women saints. And he's like, he's really down. He's like, yeah, it's so awesome. I was like, okay. You're really down with the female saints. Oh, sure. Cool. What are you? That's interesting. And then he starts like reading these passages where like they kind of suggest that like one of these old, it's like Teresa, but not the recent Saint Teresa, but like an older one. She kind of like had a hard on for God, like sexual hard on for God, and he just takes it in such a, I don't know, takes it in such an odd way. He says like the way he takes it is like, so this, he kind of says like, oh, love is basically all the same. It just depends on caprice and intensity. So, you know, some women end up with, you know, Billy Bob over there and they love him a little. And some people end up with loving God and they love him a lot. But it's really just a lot of caprice. Like all this stuff, all these words, all this stuff, it's just made up. It's just made up. It's a pretext for this, what he calls it, a creaturely desire, right? You just gotta love. You just gotta love, and maybe, I don't know, you just kind of you throw the dart and then God. All right, and wow, I guess I just really love, so I'm gonna really love God, right? And he's kind of like, well, you know, so doesn't that make loving God suck? That's kind of the conclusion he draws. Is kind of like, well, you know, now that you see that this love for God is just kind of this caprice, really. It's just a pretext from this really just this need to love, and it just happened to be God. Doesn't this give the lie to these people, these saints who love God and love in general? It's just such a weird conclusion to draw. I thought
it's back to that contingent thing, though. It's a contingent love. If it's contingent, it's meaningless.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. Just if I was really, really angry and I really needed to hit something, I think it makes a difference if I hit a pillow or I hit my neighbor in the face. You know, or like I was thinking about too, like the Batman. You know, like the Batman, his parents were killed, right? Like, so it doesn't matter if Batman became Batman or the Joker. You know what I mean? Because the Joker obviously has some vendetta. I don't know, whatever his current story arc is, right? But the Batman also, he wants to get back. He wants to make the world just for this trauma. Like, that means the Batman and the Joker are kind of caprice? Is that really? I don't think they're the same. Huh. I'm kind of, yeah. I mean, the Joker's a cool guy and all, but, you know, I'm kind of rooting for the Batman.
What did you expect to prove? These people just showed you. You got to do everything yourself. All right.
Had to get a Batman reference into this.
I had to get a Batman reference into this one. So I just want to ask you one last thing then. I think about this is, so okay, taking all this into account, like I think it's clear how we kind of fall down on this is, you know, we follow him up to a certain point, and then this kind of elimination of all distinctions kind of doesn't sit well with us. However, I mean, like, what if the despair is something like this? Like, he says, give me a specific desire and I could shake the world to its foundations. I mean, what if some of his despair could come down to something like, well, this kind of living with ambiguity is nice for some kind of elite intellectual class, but you know, for humanity to ever accomplish anything really interesting, they need the delusion, and people aren't strong enough to live in a universe where there's nothing objective. If you put them in a place where they know, like, it's always in the back of their mind that, like, this is just a human creation, they're going to slip. In other words, they couldn't make a 500-year cathedral like they did in Milan, right? There's a cathedral that took 500 years. That was only possible maybe because of a belief in objective truth, right? What if his despair comes down to something like, well, we're just not strong enough to keep this in the back of our minds, right? Or at least most of us aren't. It's impossible to do that for humans. Humans are such a thing that need objective truth lest they become lazy Slavs or something. or basically they just end up go down to caprice, right? It just ends up being caprice for them, and they just flip one thing to another, and there'll never be another Shakespeare again or anything again. Or as long as they remain intelligent. Would you say to that? In other words, they're not strong enough to live in the universe.
In the gooey, gushy,
but a little more ambiguous
universe. All right, I can sympathize with that. I think, well, I mean, just judging the world as it is now, like in the way history played out in this particular way, and in the position we're in now historically. Okay, yeah, I can sympathize with that quite a bit. I think people just go to that immediately, like that kind of, well, what does that matter? Well, what does that matter? Well, then I guess it doesn't really matter, does it? They kind of instinctively go to that. So I think people would have a hard time dealing with that. I mean, the thing is though, like,
but they do fall back on their own desires, don't they?
Right.
They are living in the world.
They fall back on their desires. I mean, and their desires, I guess, like Cioran would say, they're kind of corruptible, easily corruptible. But there are things that like transcend the average life that are not like fake. You know what I mean? Like devoting yourself to art. That's not fake. What's fake about that? Like, what's fake about making a painting that takes 20 years and it just, so impressive, and people ooh and ah at the thing forever. I mean, there's nothing fake about that. It's real, right? I mean, okay, so, well, what's the point of making art? Well, yeah, I suppose you could ask, but you know what? Do a lot of artists really do that so much? Some do, like a Cioran might. But I don't know. I don't know. I see a lot of videos on YouTube that seem to take, hundreds of hours. I don't see that many people, even, wherever you go, like people who are really cynical or they're atheist or they're Christian or whatever. They seem to be able to devote hundreds and hundreds of hours to stuff. I have a feeling they gave really little thought about, well, what if there is no God lurking behind the universe that's going to protect the meaning of this YouTube video? So I don't know. I think there's hope there.
I wonder if, like, I kind of, this could be totally wrong, but I just kind of wonder, now that God, or at least a belief in God, is impossible for a growing portion of the population, but yet people do feel a need for some kind of objectivity. They don't want to simply engage in their own desires. It's not interesting to them. I think a great majority of the people are made in such a way that if they thought it was just simply some kind of masturbatory project, they would give up immediately.
Well, they do it every night for a couple minutes.
Well, I mean, right. And the internet especially. I just wonder if, like, this is the return of community. Like, they get that sense of objectivity from a renewed community they feel through art, or through movies, or through Reddit, or through 4chan, or wherever they are, God forbid. But, that fills in the hole left by the objectivity that died with God. And I don't know, it seems like they're like the new kids, the kids coming up now, they're trying to make do, or at least they seem to be making do with, I don't know, a reduced sense, or at least a more of a communal sense of I don't know, a shared values. And it seems everything seems to be still working to a certain extent. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like this is on a pretty big scale.
Yeah.
I think it's not what it's not hopeless.
Yeah.
It's not hopeless. Even the creation of a 500-year-old a building that takes 500 years to make. I could see that. I could still see that. Well,
It's hard.
it's hard.
It's
It'd
much
be really
harder.
hard. But I mean, just things move so fast now. Things just move so fast now. But okay. I could see long term projects. I mean, they even do that in science. Like they do these long term projects. So okay.
Yeah, people still believe in science.
Yeah. I mean, like if it was something like go to Mars and you'll have to live there until you die. You get some people. You definitely get some people.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I guess it's just I don't know what did Hammond say in the New World. There's less to hope for and less to fear. You can't hope for objective meaning or life in heaven, nor do you have to fear time in hell. In other words, the universe is just more ambiguous, and yeah, I think we have it within us to get through that.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't know that the appreciation of the ambiguity is not harmful either. I think there's something edifying about that as well.
Yeah. I mean I still don't think that maybe he's right when he says that there'll never be, like, for example, I don't know, there'll never be another Sistine Chapel or something, but and we'll never experience the same feeling that those people did when they walked into it.
Yeah.
But maybe, like Nietzsche said, the necessity for that is just gone in us. And is that a bad thing? I don't know. Maybe not. We don't need that anymore. The roots from which that has grown has left us. And we'll live in a universe without that. And we'll find new things to give us meaning and impress us. And I think we're pretty good at meaning creation.
Oh yeah.
I think we're tired of that quite yet. I don't know. I'm going to turn into his villain here. I'm like Hegel. I'm kind of a little optimistic in that sense. I don't know. I don't think we're tired out quite yet.
Yeah, no, I
think it's changing. I think things are changing, but I don't think we're finished quite yet.
Oh yeah.
It's too big. Like the topic is just way too big, but I guess this is just my general feeling. What proof I have for this? I don't know. My proof is look around. You don't see a bunch of nihilists except on The Big Lebowski. So
they were kind of goofy.
Even if they claim to be nihilists, they're still doing things. They're still in the world, right? So,
yeah.
I don't know. We'll see ultimately who's right or wrong, I guess, in the end. I don't know. Anything else you have to say?
I think that really touches. Yeah, I think it really touches basically what I have to say. Just that really strong point about meaning, and then some sub points, and that's it. Yeah.
All right. So that's it. Maybe we'll have another chance to touch on the Cioran's work again.
Yeah.
Interesting. And
very verbose for such a nihilistic guy.
He really is.
He's really, really verbose. I was kind of like, really? I kind of feel he probably poured over each sentence quite a bit. So, okay. I guess he was just killing time.
Yeah, I mean, all the talk about being tired and something, I was kind of like, wow, were you tired when you wrote this?
Yeah, for being so verbose. Or for being so tired, he's quite verbose.
Yeah, I don't have the willpower to do anything anymore because I know everything's a lie. He sits there and he writes these long passages where, I mean, like a lot of the parts of the passage are just simply kind of a verbose way of saying, I hate the world.
Yeah.
Right? Which could have been summed up very quickly if he had wanted to.
Yeah, yeah. I always love how, like, at the end of like a lot of sections, he puts this big, huge thing in brackets.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, by the way.
Let me clarify.
Let me clarify this a little bit. Like, well, I guess something's going on here. You seem to be. You cared enough to give me the brackets. Thanks.
Yeah. See, I think he's proving my point. He found a reason to live too, whether he liked it or not. He certainly was doing. He was up to something here. So.
It's interesting. Maybe it's not a reason that satisfied him, though. You know what I mean? If we bring back Susan Wolf, maybe we could just say, like, you know, maybe he was mistaken.
He was
mistaken about how meaningful his life was.
Yeah. He just didn't know how meaningful his life was.
Oh, Cioran. No.
He'd be hugging and in tears now.
Right when we make our moral progress to the absolute, we'll hug and
he's like vomiting now. Like
we'll all be pure and nothing will be wrong with any of us.
It's like we're working our way up to a perfect universe. We'll soon have full consciousness of ourselves. We'll be one with God. Good times will be had. We'll be high-fiving Hegel and
that's just down the road. That's like 20 years off, I hear.
I can tell, like he liked Nietzsche's story a little bit better. We're all kind of reduced to the last man. Yeah. Like Nietzsche took that as his danger, though. Like, don't do this, please. But he saw slipping. He's kind of like, yeah, there's nothing you can do but just be the last man.
Yeah.
So, I can tell he was a little more influenced by Nietzsche, or at least tone, than he was by Hegel. And I can't blame him. So Hegel's not exactly an easy sell. So yeah. And after World War II, it'd be pretty hard to sell historical progress on anything.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
We have the graphs to prove it now. World war deaths are down, crime is down, literacy is up all across the world.
Oh my. Oh wow. Okay. Somebody's been on Twitter.
Yeah, just follow Max Rosen. He's got the graphs to prove it.
All those graphs.
Hey, again,
reality, the better angels of our nature.
Reality. All we know of reality are those graphs. Those graphs are reality.
Ah, I get it now.
Like,
wait a second.
I'm gonna flip the world. The graphs are real.
Just the real suffering I see around me is a poor copy of the graph.
Yeah. I mean, that's just an incomplete sample.
Yeah.
That's not really an accurate representation of the data. It's going to flip the world on its head and see how far it goes. Okay. That was half in jest, half not. All right. I guess that's it for me. Anything you want to say? No?
No, I'm good. Let's
all right, let's meet up
with that new book next time.
All right. And next time we'll do something new. All right, bye.